How's everyone doing? Just got off work Saturday night, serving and stuff, so I'm sure my hair looks crazy right now. um, but today I'm going to be book reviewing. It's called Interrupted Journey. It's the story of Betty and Barney Hill. It's an original old copy of it, printed 1965. That's when the story actually came out, but it's about the first alien abduction case in the United States. It's actually what pretty much made everything take off as far as all the alien abduction encounters and stuff like that. It's about an interracial couple in 1965, which was a huge deal back then. Barney, he's an African American with his wife. She's white, Betty Hill. They went on this. Basically, they're like dirt poor. And I'll see if I can get a picture. It's Betty and Barney Hill and their dog, Delcy. And that's a doctor, which I'll tell you about him in a minute. Dr. Benjamin Simon. They went on this trip. They were dirt poor, so they do kind of like what me and my girlfriend do. Like, we do these little day trips. You know, we'll be like, we live in Kentucky, but we'll be like, hey, let's go to Ohio for a day. Like last year, we went to Serpent Mound, which I plan on doing a video because I got a book there that I picked up and read it, and it was pretty cool. I'll do a video on that another day. That little adventure and my experiences there. It definitely felt like a pilgrimage, definitely. I mean, I'm kind of agnostic. I'm not sure whether there's a God or not, but I still pray and stuff. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, and don't really care. That's my spiritual side of me. But I mean, I still pray, because if there's something up there, you know, I hope it answers and listens and helps. But they're kind of like me and my girlfriend and my kid. Like, we don't make a ton of money. I've got a decent amount, but we do day trips. We don't go on vacations and all that stuff. We basically were like, hey, you know, I got a whole day off. Let's get up 6 a.m. Let's go here, eat McDonald's on the way there, eat McDonald's on the way back. But we have a lot of fun, you know, hang out at a place for 4 or 5 hours and go home, and it's the afternoon, and crack open a beer and chill out, take a shower, you know. But they went from Portsmouth, New Hampshire to Montreal, Canada, through Quebec. And here's a map of like their little course they went through. But it was just them, and they took a couple sandwiches and went to, I can't remember where they went. It doesn't matter, because that's not the big point of the story. The whole point of the story is they got abducted. Basically, they were at a rest stop, and Betty, like, while they were driving, she kept seeing this star moving. She said it was a star moving, and she brought it to his attention. He's like, oh, I don't know what it is, you know, it's an airplane, it's a helicopter, something like that. But they stopped at a rest stop to take Delcy out and take her for a walk, and basically the star got closer, and it was this orange ball. And that'll be another video I'm sure I'll do along the line, is my UFO experiences. I've only had 2. And I'm not saying they're aliens, so I mean, don't jump me and comment crazy crap about, oh, he's saying he got abducted. Never been abducted, nothing like that. I'm just saying simply that I seen some crazy stuff out in the country. Giant red ball of light, and could have been military aircraft, could have been experimental aircraft, could have been, I don't know, somebody flying around a drone. I don't know. But that'll be another video. I'm sure I'll do a whole video on just explaining my 2 small, very small UFO encounters that kind of kicked me off in the direction I've been in the past couple years. But they seen this red ball and it kind of freaked them out, so they drove off, and next thing they know, it's like it's following them and stuff, and they run into a roadblock. And here's the thing: they had this experience and couldn't remember the experience, and they were having relationship problems. They were having nightmares and stuff when they got back home from this little vacation, this little day trip, and so they went to go see a therapist, and he hypnotized them, and several interviews are in this book. And I mean, the book is, I do have to say this, it was a good book, it was a quick read, and it's not a small book, it's thick, man. I mean, it's 300 pages, it's not a small book, but I do have to say, like, a lot of parts in the book, and I'll show you, is like interviews and stuff. See how spaced out that is. So it is a quick read, and it is a good read, and it's not too deep or anything, because this is when ufology first came out. They mention I think his name's Kehoe. I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right, but he was like the first big ufologist, back in that day. This is what really kicked it off. So they got to this roadblock, and the story kind of changes in between hypnosis interviews and stuff. And I mean, I'm not skeptical about hypnosis at all, because hypnosis is like scientific, even science is like, oh, it's not a cult, it's nothing like that, and like some of the parts differ when they went under hypnosis. Like sometimes Barney would say, oh, he was a Nazi, like the main entity that was in charge of the whole thing. He would say he's a Nazi, and it didn't make a lot of sense, but he was under a lot of racial pressure and stuff, and they talk about that in the book. Like on their trip, they stopped at a restaurant, and there were some kids that were like, oh, it's a black guy with a white girl, and harassed them and chased the car down and stuff. And they had a shitty experience with racist kids, So I don't know if that was just in his head during this experience, and that part never got explained. And if that was just, he was kind of a paranoid person, and during that era, I don't blame him. I mean, that was 65, I mean, I got black family members and stuff, and it's cool now, and I've always been cool with it, but I was a 90s kid. I can't imagine how it would have been back then. Like, but I mean, I don't know. We're all the same, I'm not even going to get into that. Like, if you're not cool with it, then, well, that's you, You're not happy with yourself, then. But, so I think that had a lot to do with his psyche and his paranoia in general, and he probably was paranoid. And so he related the entity with a Nazi, but there's a couple parts, like he says that the main entity at the roadblock controlling the whole abduction operation was like wearing a captain's gear and a trench coat, but basically they got pulled into a flying saucer, and they conducted experiments, like pricked them with needles and stuff, and they put like this weird like suction thing around Barney Hill's groin area, and I'm guessing, like, my only theory is pulled out semen to make like hybrids or something. But and that's another thing. He comes back and he gets warts down there, and I don't know, I'm kind of a little skeptical on that. Like, okay, y'all got abducted by aliens, like, that's fine, that's cool. But you get warts down there? Like, and he's dead, and I'm pretty sure she's dead, so I don't want to, talk ill of the dead, but I do think it's kind of funny. Like, they both had this experience, you know. I believe they both had it and stuff, whether it was alien abduction or not. But you get warts on your groin, and then you're like, well, the aliens did it, you know. Well, maybe he could have had some side chick or something. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know. Wasn't there. I'm not. They both seem like cool people after reading the book. And here's another point I would like to make about the book. Not that I'm defending it or anything, but they didn't want their story out there. And the story got out there anyways from like townspeople and stuff. So this dickhead journalist wrote this horrible, extravagant story, and I do have to say that about the book is that it's a cool story. It's an awesome alien abduction story, but the actual story is super little. The book is huge, but it's because it's all the hypnosis tapes, and they pretty much transcribe the tapes into writing form, and it's really, honestly, it's just one story. That's it. It's a real short story, but it's just told over and over and over. So the book is repetitive, and it's extravagant. It's definitely out there, extraordinary story, but this journalist just took the basic story and ran with it and made it into something crazy, and they didn't even want to tell the story to begin with. But after he did that, they're like, whoa, 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 no. We gotta clear this shit up. Like, this guy just took this story and ran and turned it into something that never happened. He's making stuff up. So they pretty much had this book written to clear it all up and be like, this is what happened. From our words, from our actual tapes where we were hypnotized and retold the story in a subconscious state. Like, this is what happened. That other guy, he's an idiot. He's a jerk. But there's a couple things definitely that was like physical proof. There was spots that showed up on their car from when the UFO flew over and kind of beamed them and stuff. And they would put a compass down on the spot where it hit, and it would spin like crazy. And actually, that's during when they get back, and Betty calls her niece, Kathleen Martin, who actually wrote a book. I don't know if they were still alive, Betty and Barney Hill, or after their death, but she wrote her own book on her aunt's experiences called Captured, and it's the story of Betty and Barney Hill. But they put the compass on the back of the car where these spots showed up, and it would spin like crazy. I mean, to me, that's physical evidence. The warts, I don't know about that. But, like, supposedly there's scuffs on Barney's shoes, because when they got abducted, they became, like, super docile to where they had to kind of help carry them in, almost like they were, like, smashed or something, off alcohol or something. But there's scuffs on his shoes. He had binoculars that they kind of spied on it at the stop, you know, when she'd seen it and brought it to his attention, and where they'd both kind of seen it. But the strap from the binoculars broke. But I don't know. I mean, it was a good story. It's I read it in probably like 3 or 4 days. Like I said, it is repetitive. You know, but it's a quick, easy read. Even though it's repetitive, a lot of it's like the interviews under hypnosis. I thought it was good. I'm not saying I believe it 100%. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying, you know, a lot of people are reading fiction out there. This is labeled nonfiction. If you think it's fiction, well, you know what? You read a good fiction book. I hate that about people. They're like, you know, well, I don't believe it. Well, don't believe it. But, you know, you read Harry Potter, you don't believe Harry Potter. You still think it's a good book, though, right? That's all that matters. You were entertained. I'm not saying believe it or don't believe it. But it was I liked it. I enjoyed it. I read through it real quick. A lot of it's interview stuff. And there was one more point, because I try not to drag on this stuff. That's why I'm speaking kind of quick. They actually made a movie on this, and it's an old movie. I found it on YouTube. Um, Ironically, YouTube. But it's got James Earl Jones, the guy who did Darth Vader's voice. Probably like 70s, I think maybe this movie was, but it was a good movie. And honestly, if you want to watch it, check it out. It's a good movie. It's a good book. And the movie, from what I remember, because I was watching it while reading it, I would just kind of put it on in the background and be reading, and then every now and then I'd stop and zone out like a sheep into the TV and then go back to reading again. But check it out. I mean, Interrupted Journey. I think it was a good book. It's worth your while. I got it real cheap. But y'all have a good day.